All right. So for those of you joining now, you're probably wondering, what is this webinar about? It's not about ice cream. Well, it was kind of at the very beginning, but it's how to create better PDFs from Revit for Bluebeam, right? So we're talking about a Revit to Bluebeam workflow and really to get the most out of your Revit files. And there's really kind of a couple things that I want to show you. Most people, when they purchase Bluebeam, they don't realize here under add-ins, depending on what version of Revu you own. By the way, Bluebeam, when you purchase it, comes in 3 different flavors, since we're talking about ice cream. And depending on what year you bought it, currently with subscription, you can get complete. I believe in core, definitely in complete, you have the add-ins for Bluebeam. And this is what you'll see also in Revu 20 and Revu 19 as the extreme version or the CAD version. You'll have these plugins where you can export out PDFs better. If you don't have these, typically most people in Revit will start to go through and create a PDF using print or export as PDF. Spoiler alert. When you print out a PDF through the Autodesk plugin of printing or exporting as a PDF, you're limited in what information that you're going to get. And what exactly is that information? Well, let's take a look over here at our typical type of drawings. When we start working on an architectural floor plan, I know everyone here joining me in this session, when we start looking inside of a project, we have over here rooms. Now, rooms is going to dictate everything. It's going to give us our floor finish schedule. It's going to give us schedules for everything. If we have the plugins that have the doors swinging in, it's going to name the doors according to the rooms. Well, if you print out in Revit just a regular PDF without the Bluebeam plugin, you'll have just the floor plan, but you won't have something called spaces. Now, what exactly am I talking about in spaces? The information inside of the room, such as the name, gets lost if you just do a regular print. So let me show you what this looks like if I were to use the plugin. So I'm going to go to add-in. You know what? Maybe since we have time, let me just go through and show you what do I mean if I just do a regular export or print as a regular PDF. I'm going to print, in this case, the current sheet, and I'm going to give this name, and I'm going to just say export from Revu, right? Boring, no thrills, right? And I'm going to come over here and just hit export. Let's take a look what happens when you just do a regular export or print. And in just a little bit, it's going to start to print that. And if we take a look, I'm going to open up Revu, and let's see what we're working with. And the whole idea is that you're limiting the information. Information is dropping from Revit to Revu. So if I go over and just out of the box use Revit to export or print, this is what I end up with, right? So this is just a regular floor plan, like anything else. But in Bluebeam, you have something called spaces. Spaces are the equivalent of rooms in Revit. So if I were to come over here and use one of my tools like Cloud Plus and begin to mark something up over here and say, need to show furniture. Guess what? That information is sitting on top. It knows what sheet it's on or page label, but it doesn't know what space there is. So it doesn't associate the markup with the space. Now, let me go ahead and go back to Revit. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to use the add-in and I'm going to go to change settings. So if you have this add-in in your Revit, by the way, this is only available up to Revit 2024. Revit 2025 doesn't have this add-in yet, but it's coming. So over here, I'm going to go to change settings, and here's what I want you to try. At home or at the office, open this up, and under general settings, make sure to export rooms to spaces. So what this does, it takes our Revit room information and exports that out to a space. You ready? I got to tell you, I'm excited. Over here, I'm going to skip area measurements. I don't need that information, but I just want to see what happens when I do room to spaces. I'm going to click create file for the current sheet, just this one sheet. I'm going to click current sheet over here, give it a second. Now this should open up Review. It's going to open up the dialog box, and I'm going to say exported, or I'm going to say printed with Bluebeam. Yeah. And I'm going to hit save. So now this is using the plugin for Revit. It's processing the information. It might take a little bit longer because it's actually going through and calculating that information. Now, I had gone through and created it password protected. I'll show you what that does. But now here's printed with Bluebeam. Yeah. And it looks the same if we're looking back and forth. But wait a minute. Do you see something different? This has purple areas. These are called spaces. So if I go over here and turn on spaces, take a look. I now have all of the information from all of our spaces. What does that mean? Is if I start to go through and add another comment, I'll add another Cloud Plus, and I'm going to go over here back inside of my cafeteria, add information here and say, need to add furniture layout. Guess what? It now has the information in that space. So what that means is I want you to think if you have a full set of drawings, hopefully all of you are going, what? Now, when we take a set of drawings out to the field and we do a walkthrough, a punch list, whatever it may be, imagine doing a sorted inventory, a summary report, in essence, of all of the spaces and all of the issues per room. You can have the entire project and then categorized by room. This is a game changer. And there's nothing I need to do additionally other than make sure to use the Bluebeam plugin. Misty, what do you think of that? I mean, is that cool or what? I mean, we're taking
cool. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's getting more money for your buck, right? Everyone on the call here probably has Revit. They've used it for 100 years, maybe not 100 years, but use it all the time and use Review. But there's information that gets dropped, and it gets dropped because you need to use that Bluebeam plugin. If you're wondering, well, I don't have that plugin, feel free to reach out to us. We'll see what we can do to help you. You can always email us at info@asti.com. That's info@asti.com. And say, hey, I saw your webinar. I have some questions in regards to printing with Bluebeam that Rick mentioned. I don't see it. Can I get some help? Whatever it may be, we'll be happy to help. So that's my first one. This is pretty cool. Again, all of this information. Now, if I add another markup, matter of fact, I have a tool chest over here with a different type of markup, and I'm just going to simply go through and add another one here, add another one here, and I'll add another one here and add two of them here. So all these notes are going to be exactly the same, but what I want to show you is now if I go through and organize this by space, now I can see the notes, and if I enable the filter list, I can say, hey, show me just the ones that are in the vestibule. So I have two notes that are in the vestibule, and over here I can see them highlighted right here. When I create a summary report, I can export all that information according to each space. Pretty cool. Again, as a project manager, getting more mileage, getting more information out of that file. So here's my second tip. In Revit, right? When we start working on projects, I'm going back in here in Revit. If we wanted to explore something in 3D, right? We're working in a 3D world when it comes to Revit. It's all about building information modeling, right? So the information that's in it. Well, what happens when we go from Revit to Review? Well, that information is lost when it's a flat PDF. But there's a caveat to that. If we do something called a U3D, that's right, U as in like, go Miami U. No, I'm a Gator, so no. U3D. This creates a dynamic three-dimensional object from Revit, and in just a moment you'll see it'll retain the information from Revit. That's right, it retains the information like parameters, all the type information into Review. So how do we do this? over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the space, into the model space, and I'm going to select an area. Whoops, let me go back. I'm going to select this area, for example, and I'm going to go through and create a new selection box around this area. This is going to go through and create an immediate just area. I don't know if you know you can do this in Revit, but this is an easy way to kind of understand and study different areas, select an object and isolate it. Over here, what I'm going to do is take the section box and just bring it in a little bit so we can kind of see into it, right? It's called 3D Rick Kremer. I'm going to go over here and give it a new name. Where's my 3D views? Right here. Right click, I'm going to rename, and I'm going to say stair section 3D, right? I'll go ahead and save it so that writes that information to the file. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a U3D. Think of this as W, like a old-fashioned AutoCAD W block, right? Sending out this information, but there's more. You're going to love this. Over underneath create U3D, I'm going to create a U3D for you. I don't know. Just funny like that. Create U3D. And it says, what do you want to call it? And I'm going to call it Stair 3D Study, right? And I'm going to put it in a location and hit save. Okay, so it's preparing the elements. Now what? If we go back into Review, I'm going to go into one of my sheets over here, and maybe I want to have a model of what this is. And what I can do is I'm going to insert that 3D model, but maybe I don't know where it is. One of the new features in Review 21.2 is underneath Find Tools Commands. Here is an interactive search. This is great. So I'm just going to type in 3D, and I don't have to worry about where is it, where's the little plugin, where's the button to push. Just type it in right here, and over here I can see Add 3D Object. I'm going to show an area right here where I want this to be, and I'm going to automatically point to this new file called U3D. I'm going to select it and hit open, and I'm going to just leave everything as is. You can change the background color, you can change the lighting, the render mode. I'm just going to keep it as is for simplicity's sake and for time's sake. Now, when I send this to someone, even in that other application that starts with the letter A, but here in Bluebeam, what we can do is go through and move it around. Do you see what I see here? This is now a three-dimensional object, but did I mention also the information doesn't get lost? So I'm going to go inside here, move this around, and then go into this 3D tree. Let's take a look. Here is everything that is in this particular section. When I click on something, it highlights that wall. It tells me the element ID. Here's that element ID. So if I want to go back into Revit and find out more information about this object, I now have all of this information. And I can also go through and create comments. So I'm going to do a Cloud Plus, mark this up, and say this needs to be fixed, right? So that comment lives there, but wait a minute, where did it go? Over here, there's a little bubble that shows up that says, hey, there's a comment. So when we click on it, it shows that comment. So if I even go through and go back into my markups list, I'll see that information there or back in the 3D model tree. And again, all that information is right there, and you can see that this is a unique 3D markup. So those are the two tips that I wanted to share with you. Last is back here in Revit. To close things out real quick, because I know time is valuable. When I go to change settings, one of the things that I did before, and I didn't tell you, is I increased it by having a PDF security. So this is something that's built into the PDF plugin. You can require a password on the PDF. This is not available to you in a regular PDF printer in Revit world, but in Review through the plugin, I can require a password. Type in that password when I send it to someone, no matter what application that they're using, whether it's Review or that other one that starts with the letter A. even to click on it, to preview it in Windows Explorer, they have to type in the password. So that might be something sensitive, military projects or government projects, anything that you want to increase the level of security, you can start to go through and require passwords or require passwords to enable printing. So this is pretty awesome. Again, super, super easy. If you have any questions after today's presentation, as a wrap up, feel free to reach out to us at info@asti.com. What do you think? Hope you enjoyed it. Misty, back to you in the studio. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience.
We do have some questions, and also I put a link on the screen for you guys if you'd like a free trial of Bluebeam. And then I'll also put in the chat my little plugin of my own. If you're interested in Bluebeam training with Rick Kremer, there's a link you can go to as well. So those are my little plugs there, but we got some great questions here. All right, the first one, Brett says, here's hoping for Revit spaces to review spaces is eventually added as an option for your MEP friends.
You're asking, is that, so, I mean, yes, you're right. Because it doesn't take spaces to spaces, it only looks at rooms. So you're right. Fingers crossed for our MEP folks that are on the call over here, it doesn't recognize spaces. You would think it would, right? Spaces to spaces, but they're different spaces. But yeah, they have to be rooms. Maybe there's a way, and I don't know if there's a way to convert spaces to rooms, to duplicate them as rooms. I know in Revit there's rooms and you can duplicate them as spaces for MEP, but I don't know if it works the other way. Good question.
All right. David says, not real familiar with Revit. Does it create rooms tight to each other? Spaces in Revu always seem to have gaps between them.
So, in Revit, that's a whole nother thing. When we start to go through in Revit, when we're working on a floor plan, those rooms are created. Like if I go over here and just draw a wall, right, and add another one, there's no space in here, or room, I should say. So in Revit, you can place rooms, and those rooms are bounded by the walls, and you can see in that little preview, the preview shows them being placed in there. The gaps that show up are basically air gaps that might be there that show up. And by the way, in Revu, not Revit, but in Revu, if there's an area, you'll notice over here there's no purple because there is no actual Revit space or room in here. We can start to go through and create a manual space. So if you get a set of drawings and you want to go through and edit them or add new ones, you can add additional spaces. And over here, I'm going to put a new one right here, and I'm going to call this exterior lobby. I know I misspelled it, but now I have over here exterior lobby. If you need to adjust those spaces in Revu to make them tight, once you select it, you'll see that you have these grip points, so you can start to go through and adjust them as necessary. But now I have an object over here that as soon as I start to go through and create something that is pointing, to it, watch, I'm going to point out to nothing, say show floor, right? When I click on this and take a look at my markups list, you'll notice because it's outside, there's no space. But the minute I have this point inside, it starts to bring in that exterior lobby.
I like that little tur on that exter.
It's the exter.
Timothy did ask, can you show how you exported that file from Revit again?
Absolutely. Tell you what, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to show you right from the get-go. We're going to take one that is completely brand new. So watch this. I'm going to go through just so there's no tricks. Don't save. I'm just going to close this, relinquish. Let me show you how this works on a brand new project. So I'm just going to open up a brand new project, nothing in it, so you can follow at home. Here's an empty project. Doesn't matter what version of Revit you have. I'm going to go over here to walls. I'm going to go through and simply create some walls. And I'm going to go from here to here, 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 and here to here, and boom, boom, boom. Let's add some doors for scale. Shortcut for that is DR. And then I'm going to add rooms. Right? I'm going to give it names as I'm placing it. So I'm going to say this is Office 1. This is the CEO. For our mechanical friends, I'm going to put the mechanical space. They get the second largest space. You like that? And then I'm going to put Misty's corner.
Ah, I like that. Yeah.
You like that? I gave you the corner office. She gets the largest one. So, all right. Here's, just a simple little thing. When we move our cursor around, all of these are different rooms. Now, I'm going to go over here to add-ins, change settings. And by the way, this is being recorded, so you can watch it again at half speed if you want and catch all the clicks that I'm doing. Over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure to export my rooms to spaces. And I'm going to click Create File. Not OK, but Create File. I'm going to click on Create File. It's going to bring up a dialog box. Where's it going to be? Where's it going to be? There it is. Boom. Here it is. And I'm going to say Simple Office, right? Snipple Office. Hey, I never said English was my first language. Oh my goodness. True story. Actually, my first language was Spanish. I'm bilingual. So this Snipple Office is password protected because I forgot to turn that off. And I put in my secret password, which is 1234. And there is my spaces over here. So here's Misty's corner. And you'll notice as soon as I add any type of tool markup, if I put anything in here, I'm going to put a note, just a generic note. Say this is for all our mechanical, right? And when I place that object, here it is in mechanical. But if I move it into a different space, it now goes to the CEO.
Let me ask you this question because I think you're on this topic. Mohammed said, is there a way to export the markup/comments made on Bluebeam back to Revit?
So there is an application. If you go into our previous webinars, we have an application called Markup X. Now, this is an amazing application that takes all the red lines. So when you get a PM that does all of the red lines and you're going back and forth between Revit and Revu, two different applications, and trying to pick up the red lines from Revu in Revit, we have an application called Markup X where that will go through and take all of your sheets from a PDF created in Bluebeam and automatically bring those markups into the right sheets in Revit. And then you can click and execute the red line and basically say it's been completed or it's not completed and add comments. It's phenomenal. If you want further information on that, please, again, feel free. You can reach out to us, info@asti.com. If you can't find the webinar, we'll be happy to send you a link to that webinar. It is amazing. And if you want a demo, we'd be happy to do a one-on-one demo with you.
I'm one ahead of you, Rick. I threw that link of the webinar in the chat, so you guys have it right now.
She is quick. Awesome. So if you want a demo of that, after watching that, it is one of a kind. I have to say Markup X is the only application that I know of that takes PDF markups and incorporates them into Revit. It's phenomenal.
Fantastic. And look, extra points if you say, I am reaching out because of a webinar, extra amount of points from Misty on that.
That's right.
All right, next question here. When will Bluebeam release this for Revit 2025?
Magic 8 Ball. Don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I really don't know. I will tell you though, in all honesty, I just came from a Bluebeam user conference, and one of the things that they really, really they're listening to the community. They're listening to people like yourselves that want features. One of the things that you can do is built in here under help is make a suggestion. It'll open up a dialog box over here and you can start to search and then go to discussions. This right here, Bluebeam Community, is something new that recently launched, and it is a free online community to listen, to be listened by Bluebeam upper management, as well as other Bluebeam users out there. If you have a question, if you're trying to figure something out, this is a wonderful area to gain information, discuss workflows, and connect with other Bluebeam users. And I'll give you a little hint. Upper product management at Bluebeam Revu is watching this. So when they see people going, hey, we need that plugin for Revit 2025, and a lot of people start saying it, they'll probably put some more information or development hours towards it or something. Anyway, take a look at Bluebeam Community. It's awesome. Again, it's fun.
All right. Next question. Can you apply measurement markups in the 3D piece that you added?
Ooh. I haven't tried it. Let's give it a shot. Over here, I'm going to go through, I'm going to go to help, and I'm going to do the same thing. I haven't tried that. Let's give it a shot. Boom. I've never tried that one. So let's see if we can figure out what the rise is over here. I'm going to go to Tools, Measure, and do length. No, I don't think so. Because it doesn't click on anything. No, I don't think it does. Try this at home, folks. Let me know if you're able to do it, but I don't think so. I haven't had that question asked yet, so that's awesome. But here's a design issue right here. Take a look right there. Someone's going to get their shirt caught on that. Oof, I'm telling you, someone's not going to be happy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. Oh, one thing, if you're trying this on a real Revit project, please don't do the entire project. It's going to be a huge 3D model. Don't really use this. I wouldn't recommend using this as a full 3D viewer. There's other applications out there that do better for viewing a full 3D model. This is about smaller areas of your project that you want to analyze in Bluebeam. Think of it like a blow-up detail, your typical 3/4 inch detail or 1.5 inch equals a foot detail. You want to explore that in 3D to understand the relationships of one thing and another. That's where this is really comes through.
All right. And Ed says, does review spaces work when you plot multiple sheets combined, also on enlarged views?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as those spaces exist, you're going to get those spaces. You should get all of those spaces. So this was a question that came up earlier. So in Revit, right, we place a room once, right, floor plan. But when we go to a reflected ceiling, that information, the room tag, pulls the information from the room tag in the RCP plan. In Bluebeam, when you export that out using the Bluebeam plugin, you'll get the space in both floor plan and reflected ceiling. You won't get them in sections or elevations, but you will get them in floor plans and should get them in reflected ceilings. Basically, anywhere that's pulling a room tag. Think of it like a room tag. If the room tag is pulling the information, it shows up. You'll see it in spaces.
All right. So then Kristen said, can Bluebeam see what is in a space without the markup, such as valves, equipment, etc., that were added in Revit?
So if we're talking about the 3D element, like this element right now is just this object. So if there was piping going through here or mechanical, it's not like work sets that I can turn on or off or visibility settings. What you see is what you get. So back in Revit, if I were to, I turned it off. if we were to go through and create a 3D model, including the, ductwork and piping and everything, then you'll see it. Whatever you see in that 3D model is what you'll get in Revu. Hope that answered your question.
All right, Kristen, let us know if that answered your question. And we are caught up on questions here. So if y'all have any more itching questions, you've got Rick, you've got me, we're here. Let us know. But if you think of something after the webinar, I did put the email in the chat, info@asci.com.
Yeah, and one thing real quick, these webinars are for you. I love doing them, and if there's something that you would like to see a webinar on, please let us know, send us an email, or put it in the chat right now, or if you're watching this webinar afterwards, you're like, oh yeah, I'd really like Rick to do a webinar on fill in the blank, please let us know at info@asti.com. And another thing is, if you're using Bluebeam Revu right now, folks, go to the help menu and check for updates. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of really nice updates that are in 21.2, and I'm hoping to do a webinar on those soon.
Fantastic. And I will second that. I am the one over organization of webinars. So if you want to see something, you let me know. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you want. So if you tell me, I will know a lot easier. And we'll make those things happen for sure.
That's right.
But I do want to thank you all for joining us today. We hope it was meaningful and impactful for you and your businesses. If you're attending AU, please stop by and visit me and Rick. We'd love to see you in person. And we also would love for you to attend one of our GRAITEC Tech Talks. But I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the week.
And remember, keep dancing.
Yes. Let me just look at this one question before we go.
Yes.
This isn't webinar related, but can you print transparent sheets from Revit to use in layers in Bluebeam?
Ooh, get back to me on that. Send me an email and I'd be happy to explore that with you, because I wonder why. Because we can create layers. That's a complicated question, but ping me. I'd be happy to explore that with you.
And Mason threw a question in here. If you export, I know, last minute, they're like, wait a minute, I got some questions for y'all. That's what we're here for. So if you export a full drawing set, what does that do to the file size versus a normal print?
It should be the same. It really, when you're exporting out spaces, it's a minimal amount of information that's added to the drawings. But you don't have to export out the spaces. If you're like, I don't want spaces, just export out the way that you would normally. Quite frankly, if you just do, I'm thinking I'm in Revit. In Revit, whether you use create PDF here or file print.
You're not sharing, by the way.
Oh, let me share my screen. Thank you so much. Hold on. Let me go back over here. Share screen. I'm glad you said something. People are like, what? What is he doing? All right. So, the question is, does it make a difference file size? It shouldn't. When you're creating a whole set of drawings using Create PDF over here, it should be about the same size. My recommendation is always to use the Bluebeam PDF. And here's the reason why. A lot of times, for those that are on the call that are also using AutoCAD, when you use the AutoCAD printer, this is something that happens a lot in AutoCAD, not in Revit. You'll get all this extra junk, and it'll be under your markups, and it'll say SHX. Those are different objects, and Revit Revu doesn't know what to do with SHX objects that are created in AutoCAD. So it becomes just heavy and it weighs down the PDF. Ultimately, there's methods that I can show you to get rid of them. But if you go through and use the Bluebeam PDF, whether you go here or just simply go to File, Print, and then select Bluebeam PDF, your PDFs will be better and work better in the long run. You'll have less corruption, less junk. So please use the PDF, Bluebeam PDF. And if your files are huge, right? If you say, Rick, I'm getting this 100 meg file here in Revu. If I want to, get this file a little bit smaller, I can compact it going to Document and Reduce File Size. Right now, it's right in the middle between quality and compression. My 2 cents is if you have something that's over 25 megs of a file as a PDF, way too heavy, go over here and slide it over 1. You can even do a suffix over here and say, reduced, and then hit save. This is going to go through and decrease it. In this case, it decreased at negative 76%. And you won't see a thing different. There won't be anything really different between a reduced PDF. It's just taking the same amount of trash and stomping on it. Not that the PDF is trash, but on my simple PDF.
All right, Kristen did ask a question, not so much with the 3D model, but could Bluebeam pull everything that is in a room based on what was placed in Revit, or do you have to add a markup to Bluebeam for it to be able to know what is in the space?
So in Revit, the whole catch is that this information right here needs to live in Revit. So this room needs to be placed inside of Revit for it to be converted into a space. Any of the information that's here, if you have parameters that are tied to this room, I don't know if that's where you're going with it. Right now, I don't know of a way how to extract that information. It basically just says room equals space, and it creates and generates a space. But if you have other parameter information, I guess my question is, are you adding parameter information to the room that you're looking to extract in Revu?
All right, we'll wait to see if Kristen's got some feedback, clarity
and again,
for us.
Kristen, feel free to email us. I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one. That's one of the great things here is, a lot of people ask, what's the difference between buying Bluebeam directly from Bluebeam or from us here at Applied Software GRAITEC Group? Well, we get you a cheaper price, less expensive price on Bluebeam Revu, and you get me as technical support. Where Bluebeam itself, you can always get technical support right here built into the application, but they have 2 full business days to get back to you. I have 2 hours, and I usually try to get back to you in half that. So if you're not a customer of ours, please, please think about being a customer, being our customer, and get the benefits of technical support from me, and I'd be happy to help you.
And not only is it fast, it's entertaining, and you got all the answers, Rick. So it's a win-win.
That's right. No, but it's I geek out. Everyone, if you meet me, I'm all about the blue. I was jealous because Misty was drinking some type of blue drink. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I want a blue drink.
Blue Gatorade. We are all about drinking the blue juice. Yeah.
One of these days, I'm going to paint my dog blue. I think my wife will kill me, but.
One thing I did not think you were going to say, Rick. Oh my goodness. So we have somebody named Blue Clements, which is a super cool name. By the way, did you know my middle name is Blue? Just to throw that out there. Yeah.
I want that.
Blue said, can you add a 3D export to a Bluebeam session? That doesn't seem to be working for me.
I haven't tried it. So you might have to, so sessions are unique. So for those of you who are going, what is he talking about? So thank you, Blue. Bluebeam includes what's called Studio. Studio has the ability to store your document projects online in what's called a Studio project, which includes any file type, and it's a check-in, check-out type of procedure, similar to SharePoint, but this is much easier to manage. And you have what's called sessions, and sessions is a collaborative environment where you can go through and open this up and have your documents stored online. And what's nice about this is, if I have multiple people working on this drawing over here, I can invite a bunch of people to this. They can mark this up on the web. They can mark this up on their phone, iPhone only right now, for the most part, with all the bells and whistles for free. And when working with a session, there's a lot of restrictions that you can't do to that PDF. Like you can't slip sheet it. You can't change this custom statuses. And adding a 3D PDF might be one of those that you can't add. So if you cannot add it, let's see, 3D, yeah, it's grayed out. So that can't be added to a session for whatever reason. But if you add a 3D element to a regular PDF and then bring it into a session, you should be fine. There's a lot of limitations on PDFs that are inside of a session, but if you do those before they get into a session, you'll be king.
Okay, Brett said, nope, not yet regarding 3D uploads to a session.
Nope.
And then Blue said that was the same workaround I was finding. Thank you.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you'll find when working in sessions. The way that I like to think about sessions is that everyone is standing on the same piece of paper, right? And if you want to do something to that piece of paper, like swap it out, slip sheet, you can't do that because everyone's standing on it. And so one of those limitations also might be inserting 3D PDFs. So that was a new one.